A year ago, I didn't have a podcast or even think about doing one. 6 months ago, I started interviewing the artists you've heard this season, but I still didn't know if this was going to be a podcast or a YouTube series or what. So it's very surreal for me to be sharing with you the final episode of the first season of Theater Life Uncensored today, and that it is both a podcast and a YouTube series. But alas, here we are. Given that it's the final episode of the season, I knew we'd have to do something a little special, or at least a little different than what we've been doing. So, I'm going to turn the tables and ask myself the same questions I've been asking my guests all season. And in my answers, you'll hear how I incorporate all of the strategies we've been discussing this season as well. It just brings everything together so you can see cohesively how it all works in harmony, and it's a fitting way to end this season because it ties everything nicely into a bow for you. Plus, I'm going to share some of the success and stats of the first season, and we'll talk about what's coming up on next season. But before I do, be sure to hit the subscribe and get notified button so you're the first to know when our next season is released. All right, now on to our final episode of this season. Hello, welcome to Theater Life Uncensored, where we peel back the curtain and reveal to you what's really working in today's industry for theater artists just like you. That means you get to hear and learn how to surpass your career goals sooner and enjoy an easier, more peaceful life along the way. I'm your host, Jim Cooney, a New York City-based director-choreographer, and I'm also the founder of Amplified Artists, a membership community for theater professionals from performers to producers and everyone in between, helping you create a career and life you love. As this is the last episode of the season, we're going to be going on a hiatus. And the best way to find out about when we pick back up is by being subscribed to the podcast in your favorite app or player. So if you haven't done so already, be sure to hit the subscribe button in your podcast app now before you forget. And while you're there, if you've enjoyed this season and have gotten a lot of value out of it, I'd be so grateful if you could give the podcast a 5-star rating and leave a positive review. It really helps more people find out about this podcast so it can help them like it helped you. Now, all season long, you've heard me talk about the free 3-part branding formula guide and worksheet that you can download from my website. So if you've been thinking about downloading it but haven't gotten around to it, now's the time to do so because this is the last time you'll hear me mention it. And since it's completely free, there's no reason not to go grab it. You can get it at jimcooney.me/branding. Again, jimcooney.me/branding, and I'll include that link in the show notes. Also, if you've not connected with me on Instagram yet, I give a lot of quick tips and strategies over there, so it's a great way to keep getting some of that while this podcast is on break. You can find me on Instagram at JimCooneyNYC, and feel free to send me a DM anytime too. My door, or inbox as I should say, is always open. So let's start this episode off by sharing some stats from this first season because I was not expecting some of these things. For example, within the first 24 hours of launching the podcast, it was already ranked in the top 100 podcasts in the performing arts category on Apple Podcasts. Like I said, I was not expecting that. I wasn't even thinking about rankings when we first launched. And of course, these charts fluctuate every day. But on one of the days since we launched, this podcast was ranked as high as 65. Out of all of the performing arts podcasts who have been up and running for years and have amassed huge audiences, this one hit number 65. But rankings don't mean as much to me as what you, the viewer, think because I'm doing this for you, not some fancy podcast algorithms or rankings. So it has meant a ton to me that you all have given this podcast a unanimous 5-star rating the entire time you've been listening. And I really do appreciate what you've all shared in your comments and in your reviews. I'm so glad you've gotten so much out of this podcast. And something else that surprised me was how you've been listening from 18 different countries spread over 5 continents. This isn't just a podcast for people in New York City, so I'm so happy that people around the world have found out about it, but I was not expecting it to be that worldwide. So that has just blown me away, and I don't mean to sound like a broken record here, but it just was not something I was expecting. So I'm just really excited that you all have been finding out about the podcast and tuning in. Now, there's one last thing I want to share with you before we dive into the episode, and it's something that is really cool that has happened. Theater Life Uncensored is now the official podcast of the I Am Dance competition. This is a new competition with the aim of innovating the industry by promoting an inclusive experience for all, and inclusive in terms of diversity, ability, age, and for all styles of dance. I'm really, really honored that they felt this podcast aligns with their mission and their audience and have invited it to be the official podcast. So I want to offer them a public thank you. And one of the things that I love about what they're doing is going beyond just awarding trophies. Instead, they call it Trophy for Charity, where each style of dance has a nonprofit dance organization attached to it, and participants can donate the cost of their trophy to their favorite organization. And the awards that they receive are also curated scholarship programs instead of just award titles. So, an annual scholarship to amplified artists just happens to be one of those awards. But there are so many different kinds of educational opportunities being awarded. And I think that's so great that you don't just win a title. You're getting something that will actually make a difference in your career. So, like I said, I'm really proud that Theater Life Uncensored is the official podcast of I Am Dance. If you are interested in learning more about them, I highly encourage you to go check out their incredible roster of faculty and judges and all of these programs I've been mentioning. So you can check them out at imdancecomp.com. Again, that's imdancecomp.com, and I will link to that in the show notes. All right, so as I promised, I'm going to turn the tables and reflect the spotlight on myself for this episode. So some of the common themes you've been hearing in all of the episodes were how to tie together everything that you do, how to brand yourself and effectively use that branding to help you book work via your website and reels and submission videos, and how all of this helps you have unwavering confidence. We also talked a lot about the money mindset you need to have, because feeling and or behaving like a starving artist is just going to undermine everything that you're doing. So here's how I personally do all of this, but remember, you are unique. My way of doing things is not necessarily what would be best for you. And this is why in Amplified Artists, we don't try to give a one-size-fits-all solution. Everything is tailored to your strengths and goals and roadblocks, so you can learn and implement what will work best for you. And so this is why all of our members are hitting their goals, even though they're so different and in so many different areas of the industry and amongst members of different ages and at different points in their career, because none of that matters. Everything is tailored to you. So as you're listening to this, keep this in mind that this is what I'm doing because this is what's best for me. It may not be what's necessarily best for you. And you know yourself best, so you do what you feel like is best for you and helping you move forward the fastest and easiest. So the first question you've heard me ask everyone I've interviewed this season was, who are you as an artist? So I would personally say that I'm a New York City-based director, choreographer, and educator who helps theater artists shine their brightest on stage and off. And that really covers everything I do, because let's say I'm directing or choreographing. I'm helping the performers be their best in the roles that they're playing. If I'm teaching dance, I'm helping them dance their best. If I'm teaching them about the business side of things, I'm helping them best manage their career. Through things like this podcast or Amplified Artists, I'm helping you be your best in a multitude of areas. Everything just funnels down to helping people shine their brightest on stage and off, meaning in your life. So you'll see this reflected in my social media. And sure, I post about me too, but a lot of the content I post is about helping other people. And people have actually told me that they've hired me because I care so much about helping other artists. And I don't just mean getting hired as a teacher. They've told me this when hiring me to direct and choreograph too. They know that the rehearsal room I'll lead will be warm and supportive. Now, on my website, I go even a step further with the directing choreography side of things, because I get very specific and say I specialize in new musicals. And I've booked quite a few jobs due to me saying that on my website. And I know this because they've told me that they were looking for someone with a lot of experience with new musical development, and seeing that on my website is why they booked me. This is different than other directors who may specialize in jukebox musicals or reviving classics or shows that use cutting-edge technology. And it's different than choreographers who are breaking the mold and coming up with new vocabulary. Or on the flip side, people who are licensed to set works like Fosse or Robbins. There are jobs for all of those people, and there are jobs for people like me, and there are jobs for people like you. So you just got to be 100% clear on what it is that you do that separates you from the crowd. What is your calling card? Now, speaking of being clear on who you are and what you offer, this is something that I feel I personally know for sure about myself. And because of that, I feel super confident, even in situations where I'm still scared to be there, because I know I can do the job. Or if it's outside of my comfort zone, I know that they've hired me for a reason and I trust them and I know that they trust me. So I can relax about all of that and just do my best. And by the way, being scared, it really just means that you care. So you can flip that in your brain to think that this just means that I care. So when I get those feelings, I can easily let them go and rely on the clarity that I have on my talents and on myself. If this is something you're struggling to do, go back and listen to the episode I did on imposter syndrome. It was the 11th episode of the season because it is so important you get rid of those voices that are affecting your confidence. They are just going to hold you back. So switching gears now, let's talk about money because I did mention money mindset was something that we covered this season. I always choose to invest in myself. I don't focus so much on what something costs. I focus on what I am getting. I feel I am worth spending the money on. If it's going to make me better, it's almost invaluable in terms of cost. So one of the things that I do is break a cost down to see what value I would be getting. Like let's say I needed to get new headshots and they're going to cost $800. Well, I know those headshots just need to book me one job and they will have paid for themselves because most every theater job you get is going to pay you over $800 for the total of the contract. And they even pay more than $800. So if your headshots book you a show where you're making several $1,000s over the run of the show, well, that $800 was very worth it. And you're probably going to book more than just one job with those photos. So every other job that you book after that first one is pure profit because the first show covered that investment and everything else after that is profit. So I would say $800 headshots are definitely worth the investment. But some things don't have a financial value like that, though. So, with headshots, in this example, I was using the $800, but there are other types of currency where things maybe don't cost money, but they cost your time, they cost you in stress, they may cost your happiness. So if you are getting your time back or making things easier or becoming happier, those are worthwhile to invest in as well. So for example, there's some bells and whistles of my website where the software to do them costs me $100 a year. But without that software, it would take me at least twice as long to do any updates to my website. So I save countless hours every year. So by that measure, that $100 that I spend, that is so worth it to me because all of those hours are worth more than $100 to me. And if I wanted to, I could still tie that $100 back to a financial win because with all of the extra free time that has saved me, I can pick up extra side teaching gigs where I'm making way more than $100 overall. So for me to spend $100 and get all of that extra time and then be able to use that time for whatever else, including making more money, again, I am gaining by spending that $100. So that is an investment in myself. It's an investment in my time. So this is just a mindset shift from how much something costs you versus what you gain. And one of the things that I love about Amplified Artists is the over $1,200 worth of industry discounts that we have. That alone covers more than 3 years worth of your membership. So if you're only a member for a year or two, you're actually making money by being a member. And so just that alone, you've made money. Now, even if you didn't watch any of our courses or trainings, even if you didn't come get any one-on-one support through our Q&A calls or our community forums, you didn't come to any of our town halls or participate in any way, you still would be receiving more than what you are spending to be a member of Amplified Artists. But I can say that every member that does do the trainings and comes to the calls and our workshops and whatnot, they all are hitting their goals sooner, faster, easier, and doing more of the jobs they want to do, which means they're more creatively fulfilled. And because they're working more often, they're making more money too. So on top of the over $1,200 worth of discounts, you have that extra layer as well. And so, again, as you're looking at where to invest your money, you always want to be making sure that you're going to be receiving way more than what the money is or what it actually is costing you to get those benefits. And so this is the same kind of concept I use when it comes to my savings too. I'm not looking at saving money like I'm setting aside money, I'm giving up that money, or I'm cutting out things that are fun that I want to do. If you know me and you follow me on Instagram, you see how much I love to travel. So I'm definitely not cutting out things that I love to do. But I also get excited to put some money away because it gives me more and more of a financial cushion. I personally also max out my retirement accounts each year because the money in those accounts doubles every 7 to 10 years due to the interest that you earn. So I'm getting a ton of free money just by having money in there. Again, I'm looking at what I am gaining instead of looking at the money I'm quote unquote losing because I'm moving that from my checking account where I could spend it to a retirement account where I can't spend it. But instead, I'm going to be doubling that money every 7 to 10 years. So that is a worthwhile investment. And having this safety net, this financial cushion that keeps growing each year, this gives me more freedom to choose my projects of what I'm going to do and what I'm going to say no to. And because I'm doing more of the projects I want to do, that leads to greater creative fulfillment, which leads to a happier life. And it helps my confidence when I feel like I have the money to do the things that I want to do. And just FYI, that money didn't come from me booking a huge project or because I just worked nonstop around the clock for all these years. No, it's because I've always saved a little money from every paycheck, starting from when I got my first paycheck at my first job at age 16. Now, look, if you've not done that, don't sweat, right? This isn't to make you feel bad or feel like you're failing at anything. You can start doing that right now. With every paycheck that you get, if you start saving some money out of that, you will continually nudge yourself closer and closer to financial freedom. The only caveat to that is if you have any kind of credit card debt, I would just say pay that off first because you are going to be paying way more interest on your credit card balance than you would be receiving on interest from a savings or retirement account. And I know this money stuff can be so overwhelming to figure out. And so this is why I put together an entire course in Amplified Artists called Freeing Your Finances, where we go step by step through the way that money works and what interest even is and what accounts are best for artists to have and how to get a free financial advisor to help you with all of this. No one teaches you this stuff in school. And the only reason I know about it is because my parents were financial advisors. But the good news is all you need to know is some very basic stuff and you will be financially set up for success too. And so that's what this Freeing Your Finance course does. And by the way, we also have another course all on taxes for artists too, since I know that's another area of your money that stresses people out. So don't worry, we will get you sorted out and feeling much more comfortable about your money. In fact, even excited about it, because when you see your accounts grow on their own and that free money just keeps getting added each month to your account, how could you not get excited? So I hope that you see with everything we've been talking about in this episode, how this all ties together and how one thing supports the other. But here's the thing. Most people only have one or two of these pieces in place, and it's not their fault. Like I said about money, no one teaches this kind of stuff in school. And this is why I created Amplified Artists to fill in the gaps so people could learn how to do these things. And listen, I didn't know how to do them either. I just got lucky to be in some situations where I could learn all of this, and then there was a lot of trial and error along the way. So I wanted to save people a whole hell of a lot of time and create a community where you can learn and implement all of this in a safe and supportive space. So if you are struggling with clarity on who you are or how to brand and market yourself, what should be on your website or reel, or how to manage the business and money side of your career, or how to feel confident no matter what the circumstances are, then please let us help you. There is a resource out there for you. This is what Amplified Artists is all about. So go to amplifiedartist.life and you can become a member today. We will get started right away as soon as you join. And so I'll put that link in the show notes, amplifiedartist.life. Okay, so before we wrap up, let's talk about what's next for season 2. Actually, why don't you talk about what's next? Because I want to hear from you. What do you need? What's going to help you most? Send me a DM on Instagram and let me know. Again, I'm on Instagram at JimCooneyNYC. And I seriously mean this. DM me and let me know so we can cover the subjects that are going to help you the most. Or if you would like to be on the podcast, if you think that your personal story would be valuable for others to learn from, like some of the artists you've heard from this season, then talk to me. Send me a DM. Let me know. Let's have a chat about this. Now, I don't know exactly when season 2 will start. So like I said, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so you get alerted when it does drop. And in the meantime, you can stay in touch with me via Instagram. Again, I'm at JimCooneyNYC. But you can also join my free mailing list by going to jimcooney.me/join, jimcooney.me/join. And I'll put that link in the show notes too. I send free tips and suggestions each and every week to help you out. And for the final time, if you'd like to get my 3-part branding formula guide and worksheet, you can download it from my website at jimcooney.me/branding. So, thank you all for a great season. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast and have grown from it. And if you have, I would appreciate you helping spread the word about it, or even just leaving the podcast a 5-star rating or a quick review. I promise you, it really does help. And since I won't be back in your ears for a while, I want you to remember this one thing. There's no one on the planet who's just like you. Be true to the gifts you have and who you are. Thanks so much for tuning in this season. Be safe and be well. Cheers. All right, friends, that's it. If you've got any questions or want to keep the conversation going, drop me a note in the comments below. And if you like this episode, hit the like button to help more people find out about it. And be sure to subscribe and get notified so you're alerted when we come back on air. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.